In 2012, one of the strangest and yet one of the most engaging shows aired on Disney XD Canada, and that is Slugterra, a show where you enter an underground world where people fire slugs from blasters, then they have elemental powers unleashed once they reach a certain speed. The concept is, albeit incredibly odd. If I were trying to describe this show to someone nowadays, they'd roll their eyes and tell me it's going to be a garbage show, but that's something I missed about cartoons during the early 2000s and 2010s. We were still open to the idea of weird concepts for shows and just exploring them. Odd concepts allow us to tread new ground and make wholly original stories. No one bats an eye when an anime is weird, they expect it to be weird. But when it's a cartoon from anywhere else, suddenly it's put under a different level of scrutiny, and I can't stand that. We're depriving ourselves of interesting concepts just because they can't deviate from a certain norm. The show follows Eli, Shane, and Burpee. His father fell fighting Dr. Black, and so now he had to travel to Slugterra in order to defend it from people who may want to use the slugs for evil purposes. And don't get me wrong, I know that slugs have cool magic powers, but I feel like actual weapons would still overpower them. I want to immediately make jokes about animal abuse, but they clearly want to be fired at high speeds. They were made for it, and if I were to make those jokes, I'd feel like PETA criticizing Pokemon, even though Pokemon battles is more like animal wrestling or animal MMA, not cockfighting. Like, there's rules and regulations, so I'm just going to allude to the possibility of those jokes, but I'm telling you now that out of a certain level of decency, I'm not going to be making them because, unlike PETA, I like to think I actually have media literacy. Here's something I never quite understood. They need to keep the upper world and the lower world secret from each other. Apparently neither of them know about the other, but there's people down here, more than just Eli. So were these people born here, or are they also people that came down here and just decided to keep the secret? Which that would be the most unrealistic for me. I don't know. I would like it if there was more subterranean races than humans to mix it up. A long time ago, when my channel was still young, I made a video covering Slugterra and all of the peripherals. That video got incredibly popular, and I didn't really have access to the show as much as I really wanted to. Or maybe I was just dumb and looking in all the wrong places, as plenty of you have told me in the comments and direct messages for several years, and I mean years. For years, you guys were telling me where I can find the show and like all the updates that was happening with it, and it was a little annoying. Now, I was new to the whole YouTube career when that video came out, and that sort of thing of being inundated with a ton of messages and spammed when everyone telling you the same thing over and over again constantly, that's normal. That's just part of the job. I think it was the slow attrition that got me, just slowly whittling me away. It's been long enough to where enough people have stopped, and my misguided hatred of Slugterra has faded away. And I know the only reason I hated quote-unquote Slugterra was just because I don't handle being annoyed well. I'm very bad at it, and I'm sorry. I have been thinking about making this deep dive for a while now, but I haven't because I'm petty. So now that I decided to stop being dumb, I decided to revisit Slugterra and actually give it an honest try of going down the rabbit hole of the entire series and all the mini movies, which some people claim are seasons, some people claim aren't, some people claim are seasons and are movies, and they're technically both. It's complicated. I'll cover it. I'm going to cover them as if they're all just seasons for the sake of keeping everything organized. Okay, cool. Slugterra released during an era where action cartoons were slowly dwindling away, and these kinds of shows either vanished after 1 or 2 seasons, or it found its audience immediately and stuck around despite the odds. That's something I miss about this era the most. You can find really good action cartoons on streaming services, but they still really try to find a happy balance between being for kids but also for adults. This era knew it was for kids. It was made to be cool. Cool for kids, but also the writers and the producers also wanted it to be cool for them, and so there was a natural middle ground where it appealed to kids and adults. Now that's largely gone. Evil bad guy Dr. Black is taking slugs and turning them into evil slugs.
What about you, Trixie?
I was tired of seeing bad people ride into my home cavern to cause trouble.
I'm going to take her having a hometown in Slugterra as proof enough that they were born down here? Okay, I'm happy. They immediately let you know Eli's personality by how he treats the slugs. He refuses to take someone's favorite slug because they're friends. He asks the slugs if they want to work with him, and he seems to have this ability to understand them on a deeper level than most people who've lived down here their whole lives. A complete contrast to Dr. Black, where he treats them as tools. It's literally just focusing on if they're a decent person or not, and that's what makes them so different.
I've waited my whole life to sling slugs and be a Shane. I just always thought I'd be doing it with my dad.
Yeah, but what about your mom? How is she okay with you being down here? You're 15. Wait! They have cute creatures, and they use those creatures to do battle with magic powers. Now, I don't really like comparing things to Pokemon just because it's got magic creatures that battle. But his mom let a kid go on an incredibly dangerous adventure? Now that's the final straw. This is ripping off Pokemon.
Do we have enough gold to pay for this?
Only slugs. Got some good ones here.
You want something valuable, you have to trade something valuable in return.
The Pokemon similarities stop, and the slave trade similarities begin? Yikes, that feels bad. Hard to be afraid of someone built like a triangle on sticks. Someone skipped leg day. You really can't compare this show to Pokemon at all because the majority of the show is outside of an official rule set. Like, they start with a competition and then the bad guys will just say, screw it, and start an actual firefight. And they have blasters, so there's that too. Shane discovers a slug that actually heals and reverses the ghoul slug's corruption, creating a power for them to properly fight against Dr. Black. I feel like a big problem with season 1 and for the entire series is that there really isn't any strong differentiation between different places. They're all largely the same brown, underground, rocky hillscape that we see all the time. I would want more areas with big cities that have unique architecture. This show almost purely focuses on the threats of Slugterra and the competitions they have with each other. I don't get a strong sense of a culture or a civilization, and they clearly have advanced technology, so you'd think they'd apply that to making your everyday life easier. What they do right is focus on the wide array of slugs and their different abilities in season 1. Their goal is just to create a diverse arsenal of slugs so that they can better fight against strong opponents. They know they can't overpower Dr. Black, but they may just be able to outsmart him. Having a toolbox of slugs is their best bet to fight if they don't want to corrupt their own slugs in the process. And also the slugs were the toys they were selling, so of course they'd focus on the product.
Dr. Black's most feared enforcer, El Diabolos Nacho.
When they aren't trying to find new slugs, they're sabotaging Dr. Black's secret nefarious schemes. They just so happen to stumble on his power plants and other secret bases. Now, this is cool for a one-off episode, but it's usually hard to feel like the individual episodes of random schemes actually feels important, other than this episode where they discover the primary resource Dr. Black uses in order to corrupt the slugs is dark water, this strange liquid that creates odd effects that you can find if you dig down deep enough. This show honestly gives me like strong Ben 10 vibes, but Ben wasn't really able to pick what alien to fight against his enemies. Shane does, but both are toolbox characters that need to work with what they have and apply themselves in ways that aren't to conventional thinking. I think that's the major aspect as to why people fell in love with this show. Unique world and Ben 10 vibes.
Okay, the caverns run on slug energy.
Didn't you learn this in school like the rest of us?
That's something I think is so funny about this. They did such a good job keeping the upper world secret that Shane has to pretend he's lived here his whole life while also knowing nothing about what life down in Slugterra is like. Like slugs essentially being the center of life and how every other life grows around the slugs, which is why they're integral to life. No slugs, no life. and his friends just glance over the fact that he's entirely clueless about what should be common knowledge, which is why I feel like them keeping both worlds a secret is futile because anyone with a brain could figure it out, but it's a cartoon and it makes it fun, so I'll let it slide. Shane's ability to befriend slugs allows him to communicate with the Shadow Clan, an ancient underground race that's supposedly one of the biggest threats in all of Slugterra. But Burpee, his friend, is able to communicate with them, almost like slugs and the Shadow Clan are more closely connected to the environment than people would be.
Burpee, you've got hundreds of slugs in there. What do you even need them all for?
For having the most slugs. That's how you play the pirate game.
This is how billionaires think of money. Season 1 is a solid start for the series. It gives you a lot of action and personality for the show, and it gives you glimpses into how the world works, even if sometimes it's weird and doesn't make sense, like they're just being a mall. Like, you guys got malls, but not better urbanized areas. You got towns and stuff, but okay, whatever. Several episodes are home runs. If it doesn't progress the big bad guy plot, you get a solid and fun episode. There's a lot of faith with the writing of this show just off the first season. I would be shocked if there was a major strides in the overarching story in season 1. We're still in the era where they gotta make episodes that can be aired and re-aired over and over again, but the seasons are also surprisingly short. We're in that transition period between aired television and streaming and YouTube where they're still adhering to what they know while taking small steps to adapt to the new era of television media. Regardless, it's obvious to see why Slugterra got a solid fan base right from the get-go. Season 2 starts off with action and what looks like to be an actual city. Thank goodness. I can stop harping on that. Anyway, the 2-part special called The New Kid starts with the Shane gang tracking down this Dr. Black henchman. And who's that blonde-haired stranger casually endangering himself? Well, everyone casually endangers themselves in this show. Was safety regulations ever established in Slugterra?
Follow me if you want to live.
Bold of you to assume I want to live. This guy is Twist. He probably calls himself that because he twists the truth.
He's my number one, aren't you, Loki?
I like that you name your slugs.
Hey, you seems kinda casual for guys that save my bacon on a regular basis.
I don't need my bacon saved. I keep all my bacon inside of my dog. She keeps it safe for me.
If Black gets wind of what we're
I
doing...
know you got no reason to, but you can trust me.
Wow, good enough for me. I feel like this exemplifies the major fault of Shane. He's a very trusting person, to a fault. He makes a lot of allies very fast and he's a good judge of character, but that's something that can be easily exploited. Shane wants Twist to join the crew and Shane wants to cut off Dr. Black's supply of dark water. And the show tries to do this thing where Twist is a double agent, but not even Dr. Black is certain he can trust Twist, trying to make us hope that maybe he'll become a good guy, which is really nice. Double agents are usually a safe way to make the plot interesting. So what they do is steal the cargo train full of Dr. Black's supplies. Cord is the only one that's feeling like everything is fishy while Shane is trying to tell him, come on, dude. And Cord is all like, nah, man. And this may be another way they're showing Shane's big flaw. He's so eager to stick to it to Dr. Black and to give Twist a chance, he runs headfirst into a trap while also ignoring his other friends. He's not taking the proper cautions in pursuit of getting ahead too fast. Eventually, Cord figures everything out and tells Shane that Twist is a double agent. Frankly, Cord is probably the most valuable member of the group. Shane is the leader and the face of the group, which is all very important, and I'm not saying Cord should be the leader, that'd be ridiculous, but Cord is an engineer, a good slug slinger, and is generally incredibly competent. If Pronto and Trixie disappeared, Shane and Cord would still be a pretty capable all by themselves, especially if they get rid of Pronto.
Your father is the reason I'm an orphan. It was only a few slugs. We weren't hurting anyone. He could have just left us alone.
Oh yeah, I guess Shane's dad would have been like the cop of Slugterra. Huh. That's got to be real crummy for Eli finding out following the law to a T has a lot of downsides. Shane manages to outmaneuver him, and Twist's own slugs attack him for betraying them as well, but Twist manages to get out of there by using his ghoul slug. Twist goes back to Dr. Black, and in the end, after Diablos Nachos failed Dr. Black in the mission also, he gets rid of Nacho Man. Now, Twist is the new second-hand man to Dr. Black. Season 2 really tries to focus on Shane's dad and the legacy he left behind. In the same season, we meet Dana Poor, the daughter of Will Shane's partner that we only get introduced to now. The one thing that throws me off is that Eli doesn't really take time to reflect about his dad or doubt how noble he really was. You'd think if they were introducing all this background information on his dad, it would be working toward character growth for Eli, but that doesn't seem to be the case. It's just more of a challenge for him rather than anything introspective. And they find this treasure that Dana Poor was looking for, but they don't know what it is.
My dad talked about him all the time, until he betrayed my dad.
Your dad obviously didn't tell you the whole story.
Ooh, there's a shocker.
Inside is a time capsule, but also this weird crown that has a psychic link to the Shadow Clan, so that's probably really important. And now the Shadow Clan shows up. Wow, that's surprising. And they just start fighting. Why can't you use your slugs to talk like you did before?
Are you that you can withstand the power of the Shadow Talker? It allows communication between the wearer and the Shadow Clan.
So you guys don't just have like a regular language? I can't Rosetta Stone this stuff? Also, Dana got this teleporter. Some guy figures out how to go to the above world and Eli freaks out. And he tells his friends the above world is real and they don't really believe him, but also they really skirt around how the two worlds discovering each other would be catastrophic, but they also get that diary with a bunch of secrets that was written by Eli's uncle. Season 2 really focuses not only on fleshing out Eli's dad and his relationship with the people of Slugterra, but also fleshing out the inhabitants, creating more characters that are all somehow tied to Eli's dad, explaining the history of not only him, but Slugterra itself, creating small pieces for Eli to slowly put together as he slowly comes into his own, while also facing his own challenges, but more importantly, learning from his father's past mistakes and trying to be a better protector of Slugterra. Season 2 feels like Slugterra really found its footing. There feels like real direction compared to the previous season. Also, there's this unbeatable master that Dr. Black beats. And so Eli gets her cool twin staff and her yin-yang fusion slugs. If we got fusion slugs, are we gonna get synchro slugs and XC slugs? Also, she, sends, I don't know, weird Jedi slug master death stuff. Now Shane can slug fusion just like the old master. He unlocked his third slug eye. Dana comes back eventually and needs the Shane gang's help because she was dumb and teleporting around stealing Dr. Black's stuff. He saves her and they become friends, and Shane even lets her keep the teleporter thingy, and then they never see her again, ever again in the entire rest of the series. That she's just done. They just don't use her at all. It just, you thought that this would probably be leading up to something, you're wrong. Slight tangent. If there's super duper rare slugs, like for example, a slug that literally heals people, like Doc, you would think there'd be breeders out there in this world that are breeding slugs for research purposes. We know there's scientists in this world. There's an episode where like one of them goes crazy and tries to make mechanical slugs. So like there has to be slugologists, whatever they're called. Lime ecology. Oh, neat. I should really make Slugterra stickers for my Patreon. That'd be nice. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Shane and Cord hunt down material to create a machine that can do the fusion thing that the unbeatable master had. As you can expect, it doesn't go well, but they eventually get what they need. Season 1 felt like a rough draft. They got those lame one-off episodes out of the way for the channel to replay whenever they need to. Season 2 is the second run-through of that draft. They had someone else look at their work and point out the obvious flaws. The show feels like it's taking place in an actual world and not just a setting. And what I mean is that it feels lived in. They realized the problems and addressed them. Now the show feels like it's standing on its own 2 feet. Season 2 is a massive step forward. Season 3 starts strong by really deciding to dive into more of an ancient mystic magic aspect of Slugterra. They find a portal that's being sealed off by slugs, and Shadow Clan is here as well, because honestly, I'd be surprised if they weren't. He explains that this is the edge of Slugterra, and they hold back the Dark Bane. And those slugs holding it back are the most powerful slugs of all. I'm getting really strong Marillion vibes from Chaotic. Did they sort of take inspiration? It's nice seeing them create more civilizations and cultures in Slugterra. Well, I guess this isn't Slugterra anymore. And they find out these guys are swimming in dark water. The Dark Bane, the dark water, the dark light. Sounds like Dr. Black would love this place. Speaking of which, did I miss Dr. Black's goal? Is he just trying to control Slugterra? We get to see how Eli's morals have to be pushed against. The slugs are offering to be ghouled so that they can defeat the Dark Bane, and he's forced to accept that there really isn't any other way. They just aren't strong enough, and he decides that not letting that thing get out and destroy everything is worth breaking his code just once. They can't really beat the Dark Bane, but Doc is healing up all the Guardian slugs, so he just fixes up that force field for them. Oh no, they do beat the Dark Bane. Oh yikes, that's brutal. And they heal up all their friends. Also, Doc is strong enough to be a Guardian, and so now they leave Doc to guard the force field. Don't they need him? What? He's the most valuable member of the team. Oh, and one of them got through it, but it's just Nacho Man. We got to see Shane's double barrel fusion blaster, but the slugs don't fuse right away, and it does bad. The Shadow Clan abduct him and tell him slugs got auras, and you can't mix the wrong ones, so you gotta not be dumb. I'm loving how they're really utilizing the concept that the slugs are the centerpiece of life in Slugterra. Before in season 1, they were just a weird detail to sell toys. Now they're developing the deeper lore of the world and how all these seemingly random variables are actually connected. We see Eli grow as a defender of Slugterra, and he's going out of his comfort zone in order to do what is right. What I was afraid of is them leaving Dr. Black to be the bad guy that stays in the darkness plotting, but they have him front and center and show him actively trying to ruin the Shane Gang's plans. Props to them. And also turns out that Enigmo slug they got forever ago is so valuable because it allows him to see the slug's aura. Therefore, he develops a more intimate understanding of the slugs. The key to defending Slugterra is in its people. The real people of Slugterra, the natives, the Shadow Clan. Now we see Eli properly use the fusion blaster and can stand a chance against Dr. Black. When this season isn't filling out more one-off episodes, they're really digging deep into the overarching battle between the Shane Gang and Dr. Black. And now the new fight between the tertiary force of Diablos Nachos and whatever he's after, they really want to exemplify Eli and Dr. Black's methodology for fighting each other. Eli focuses on the understanding of nature and the unknown forces of the slugs. His method is to develop an upper edge by exploiting every aspect that Dr. Black ignores. And Dr. Black relies solely on his advanced technology to brute force his way to power. In the end, Eli will understand the slugs better than Dr. Black, and when he understands the very core of his power, Dr. Black won't be able to stand a chance. Don't worry, if we don't have Doc, we'll make up something else that'll heal up the slugs. We now have the Light Well, literally a healing well that's the culmination of all the slugs' power in all of Slugterra. And just being near it heals up the slugs from the ghoulification, and the Shadow Clan take away Dr. Black. We're now focusing less on Dr. Black being the ultimate bad guy and shifting gears to the Dark Bane being the ultimate bad guy. This shifting away from Eli versus Black and more of a fight between light versus darkness, but more in a physical sense rather than metaphysical. Dr. Black is still a threat since his ghouling of slugs is making Slugterra, the culminating power of the slugs, weaker. Whenever I see another story that focuses on the fight between light and dark, I tend to roll my eyes, but this isn't quite the same. The quote-unquote light is more like the essence of life and nature, which some people would argue is what's always the case when they think of the light, but most stories focus on more of the holy, spiritual kind of light. And the dark evil sort of darkness, this still has aspects of that, but it's definitely second place to the more tactile lifestyle and real sense of nature and protecting their home. Slugterra gets a little bit of a pass for treading into the light and darkness trope. It's more like life and unlife or life and corruption. It's only a little different, but there's still enough difference. And Shane found out you can megamorph a slug to make them more powerful if you're going 200 miles per hour. Speed is directly correlated to power. Dr. Black is now in jail. I wonder how long until he breaks out. They commit a whole episode where Dr. Black explains why he had beef with Will Shane, and it's literally just he grew up in a harsh environment and was taught to be a big fat meanie face, and so he's a big fat meanie face. Then he got angry at losing and decided he was going to be a mafia boss, which I feel we already sort of knew. This doesn't tell us anything new. If the question is, why is Dr. Black evil? The answer is, he's just like that. He does talk about how he became buddies with the Dark Bane, and that's how he got Dark Water and Diablo's nachos. But that's also something we could have figured out on our own. I thought this was already answered. Wait, I just realized. Okay, Dr. Black was teleported to the Dark Bane, okay? How did he get back? Wouldn't he have been stuck there with the rest of them? There's like a whole force field keeping all of them there. They not only got Dr. Black out, but also Nacho Libre Man. If they can get out 2 people, why didn't they just slowly trickle out more and more people over a long period of time? Sounds to me like a plot hole. Now they can send people through just because Dr. Black is corrupting so many slugs, and because slugs are integral to the balance of life and nature and everything, it's weakening the balance, and so the Dark Bane can just walk on through now, not quite as like a full frontal assault, but like it's like a little trickle in the dam, but that doesn't explain how they got back all the way back when all that time ago. Why is Nachos working for Black again? Didn't Nachos fail him and he sent him back to the Dark Bane? Look, Twist is still there. I would have thought Nachos, heck, the Dark Bane would be upset with Dr. Black for turning his back on the henchman the Dark Bane gave him. I get that they want to take over Slugterra and Dr. Black is their best bet, but I still feel like he's getting off too easy. Oh, yeah, Dr. Black broke out of prison. Also, Eli got an upgrade so he can shoot at 200 miles per hour to megamorph his slugs. Thanks to Mr. Science Guy. Black developed a super drill that goes all the way to the Dark Bane. He's brute forcing his way to the Dark Bane army.
Oh, hello, cousins. I wasn't expecting you.
Learning about impending doom, the Shadow Clan gives them back Doc. So Eli fires Doc at megamorph speed in order to reverse the polarity of the portal, effectively sucking all the Dark Bane back in. But Dr. Black throws Eli into the portal as well, and Burpee throws Black in there with him. Now Eli is all alone with both of his greatest enemies, or at least he would be if Burpee didn't fly him out of there. Honestly, that's a shame. That would have been an awesome way to transition to Season 4. We'd have an awesome Slugterra Doom Guy scenario, and the Shadow Clan tells him they did it. They won, Slugterra is safe, the portal is secure, and Dr. Black is gone. End of the story. Eli decides to go home, or at least that's what you'd think, but Eli closes up that hole for good. If Season 3 is known for anything, it's known for upping the stakes and cementing the lore of Slugterra. It's just so strange how they introduce this bigger threat and then also resolve that big threat in the same season in a way that's honestly not very satisfying. It felt like it took them 2 real episodes to find out Dr. Black's plan and then foil it. Now that super big threat that they just fleshed out is gone. So now they're just starting from square one? Now, I'm not super upset at Dr. Black being tossed aside since I never really thought he was the most compelling villain. He had a lot going for him. It was just never quite enough. They spent a lot of time talking about how Dr. Black thinks the Dark Bane serves me, and the Dark Bane goes, no, Dr. Black serves us. And I thought they were gonna have this whole foreshadowing the Dark Bane and Dr. Black to fight each other, and so there's infighting, and so like a house divided cannot stand sort of parable, and that's how they defeat them, by having them destroy themselves. But nope, that was just talking. Yeah, it was just filling up words in an episode. I thought there was a purpose to it. I guess I put too much faith in the writers. And the Dark Bane was such a cool installment to the world, and now that's also just set aside. Season 3 feels really weird to me. It feels like they were told to just wrap everything up in one season, but then afterward they're like, hey, we did it, we wrapped things up. Cool, keep making seasons. Oh, okay, fine, what? Or maybe they had a better idea for like the world and story after like the first 3 seasons was just like testing and finding their way. And now they're like, oh, now we got a really solid idea of what to do now. Oh, let's bring out the big guns. I'm not sure at all. The sad part is the information on the development of Slugterra is actually very scarce and hard to find. But here is what I did find. During the early years of 2012, back when Slugterra was known as Slugterrania, we get to see early development and promotion for the show at conventions. Now you notice that the artwork differs greatly from the final design, and that's because they aren't using the animation to promote the show. They're using early concept art and character profiles done by Creature Box. The show's art direction was done by Andy Poon, pictured on the right. These illustrations were all the marketing team had to go on as the show was being animated in order to make the release window. These concept designs are all the information I can really grab. I also did message Andy Poon trying to get more information from him. I have not received a response, so please don't blame me for not trying, cause I did. But that's not the true ending of Slugterra. Oh no, there is 3 more seasons after this. And in the next episode of this deep dive, it's when they switch from Disney XD to Netflix. But I am covering that in part 2 of this deep dive, so I hope you enjoyed this video. You can support me on Patreon in the link below. Stay beautiful and keep playing.